Today, a new story begins. On a remote peninsula off West Axis, I'm born to a Tides father and an albino mother. On its own, albino is very rare. Son of Tides even more so, as you can only obtain it by being nested by a streaming parent in specific locations across the map. These mutations are only a thing on the Petits Pieds unofficial server, and I'm the product of that unlikely combination. In this location, it's possible to unlock another skin. This Teno you see beside me with the purplish-orange patterns, that is a son of Twilight, I think? So yeah, they were like mass nesting babies here, and I was one of the last babies. I think Fish here was one of the very last babies. I was still young, vulnerable. I needed my parents to feed me, guard me, and entertain me. In the light, I was looking quite dazzling. My lower colors are the Tides mutation, whereas my top colors were this white color from the albino mum. I also got my mum's gorgeous red eyes, kind of like a demon. The only thing is, if I log out, I lose the skin. I become a default skin. Not to mention, it was already like, I don't know, midnight? So I was growing a little, but I wasn't really sure if I was going to continue. You know, like how late am I really going to stay up just for this? But the more I grew, the more gorgeous I looked, and I just couldn't log off, no matter how long the hours dragged. My growth was pretty uneventful. I met a few other siblings, but they left soon after. I wish I could have seen more, because all the different combinations were really cool. But alas, Shayla and Bendover left the group. Why is that guy named Bendover? We grew in peace until chaos called our names. I knew dealers were about, and I smelt these organs spread out along the ground, and so I went to investigate. Baby kicking was the goal. Not that there was much of a chance of me chasing this guy, I mostly just wanted to be a terror. Plus, since I was still only around 50 to 60% grown, I still had all that juicy stamina to burn. Somehow, though, karma always finds me, and so after a few more moments of wandering around, somewhat aimlessly, until I saw Fish calling for help in the chat. I ran over to find them dealing with a few dillos, the same smallish one as before, plus a much larger one. They instantly fled as soon as I arrived, and I gave them a few rageful nibbles on the tail. They weren't much of a match for us, even though we were only half grown. But I chased them around anyway, because why not? After a while though, I realized that Fish must be envenomated because they kept doing their evil little giggle, and so I told them to move to the rock edge if they needed to. I led the way and we went up the side of the rock. Kind of cheesy, but considering the dillos are like way faster than us, might as well just sit on a rock and not get killed by clones. I would prefer to survive today. I tried to chase them a few times when I saw them again, but they really weren't interested after this. I think they just wanted to grow in peace. It was getting late in real life, but look at me. I mean, come on. You can't give up on a skin like this. I couldn't just log out, go to bed, and let the skin fall into the default abyss. Yuck. And so I kept my tired eyes awake and continued my march. At this point I was ready for some action. I felt big enough. And so we made a bit of a migration. We were now in West Rail. This place seemed a lot more populated. We found a steg, some galleys, and some carnos. I love carnos. Fighting carnos as a Teno is like one of the most enjoyable activities that there are. When you give it a good tail slam in the face, it's just delicious. We weren't yet full grown though, and so this carno thought that he had a chance. He didn't. I guarantee no carno will ever kill my Teno. I'm happy to challenge anyone to that. I had slapped him, clawed him in the eyes, and kicked him in the face. Was that enough? Absolutely not. I intended to chase him until his blood was out. I've done it before. And so we chased. I was still somewhat young, so I had plenty of stamina to use up. As a full-grown, I would not be able to run for nearly this amount of time. We followed him into the bush, sniffing ferociously. I lost him for a moment in this thick brush, and wandered in a random direction when I noticed another little patch of blood, and we were back on the trail. Here, I genuinely wonder if he fell off the cliff, because I think it would be very funny if he did. His blood leads in the direction that would imply he fell off the cliff, so who knows. So I continued my charge. He must be chased. We did find a couple Mayas, and I was hoping that they would take over the chase for me, since they're way faster than us, but they didn't seem too interested. Which is fair enough. What did the carno ever do to them? At this point, he had disappeared into the forest, and I sort of lost him again. So I continued my aimless wander. And I would never have found him if not for him leaping out the bush and trying to bite me on the butt. I yelled at him and chased him some more, but eventually he lost me again in the bushes, and I did not find him. So GG's. I think his blood had healed by now anyway from his sitting. I didn't smell any more. He lives to see another day. Lucky carno. Though I did see one run down this hill, but I don't think it was the same carno. It could have been, who knows, but I have no idea how it would have that much stam to be the same carno. I was kind of bored of the chase anyway, so instead I made my way to have a look at the pond. We saw the carnos that ran down the hill before, and it definitely looked like new ones. There were 3 of them, and they were keen on a fight. I would have loved to fight them, if not for this random Teno running out of the bush. As soon as they saw it was a 3v3, they turned tail and didn't come back. Not really the glorious battle I was hoping for, but we followed them and found a new battle. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you know how my fights with trikes usually go. Either glorious or completely tragic. I might have been down for this awesome fight, but I had already sunk a good hour or so into growing this thing, and I saw the potential. I know how you guys love to see a beautiful skin, and I love it too, so I wasn't ready to kill my little Deino just yet. I wanted to die in a more awesome fight, not by a one-tap. And so I took a few careful kicks, but as soon as the trike started camping the wall, I decided that this fight wasn't for me. Mason was very keen to continue the battle, and as I walked away, I heard a few sounds of pain coming from the trike, and safe to say I was impressed. Good for him. Get that thing. I was hoping that when I went down onto the beach, since it is a fighting zone on this server, that maybe the carnos might be more interested in fighting me, because if they killed me, they would get some certain point, like points that you can gather. I don't really know how it works. I think if you get 100 points, you can buy a skin or a rank or something. I'm not sure, but either way, no, they were not interested. They ran away down the beach like little wussies. So, yeah, wasn't gonna happen. These galleys, though, very cute. Big fan of galleys. There's gonna be a lot of clips like this, and at the end of the video, there will be a bunch of screenshots from replays that I got. This skin is just one of my favorites for sure that I've ever gotten from parents combining their cool, unique mutations. That being said, the fog was rolling in and we wanted to explore a bit more, so we went up and took another look at the pond. This is where I found some delicious action. My addiction to kicking things that swim. This is where it was born. Mason had the right idea. He jumped right in. Full confidence. Love that, because it made me feel a lot safer about drinking. And then I spotted his target. Not my proudest moment, murdering a defenseless hero with no stam, but I did it, and I'm not gonna cut it out of the video. My second not so proud moment, killing a baby hero. Defenseless, even more so. Yeah, I don't have a defense for that. There's no words. Saw these annoying carnos again though, and chased them off, because that's what I do. The storm continued to rage on, but luckily it didn't last too long, because this server has a wonderful thing called weather control. Dynamic weather, so the storms don't last for like 30 minutes straight. So eventually we traveled down the beach, and this is where we found something very entertaining. A Deino. You know how I love to kick Deinos. As soon as we lured him onto the land, it was time for me to strike. I'm pretty sure in every Teno video I've ever made, I kick a Deino in the face. I think it's my trademark at this point. He also had a couple little babies with him, which I liked very much. I was extremely determined to kick them in the head, though I'm not sure if many of my hits landed, considering how they kept coming back for more. With the survival skills of a one-call spammer, I leapt into the water in order to try and bite the little swimmer. Not my brightest moment, but nothing bad ever came of it, and so I continued. Fish joined me in my mission. Mason, on the other hand, was a lot smarter than the two of us, and he did not dip his toes in the water. My younger brother, who I'd grown with and fought with since birth, was being dragged into the ocean. Until he emerged. This was shocking. The last thing I had expected was for the Deino to run out of stamina and drop him, let alone for him to have the stamina to swim out. But in that moment, Fish was reborn, and so too was my Deino rage. The smaller ones watched on as the chaos continued, and the galleys from earlier made their way to join us. We were all united in the Deino kicking cause. They even joined me in my spam biting. This is a sign of dominance, obviously, No, in true reality, I was just trying to distract the smaller Deino, make him think that I wasn't looking, so I could give him a kick. Get out of here, little Deino. It was all fun and games till another big one showed up. I do not like messing with two Deinos. One of them will hide and act like they're not looking. One of them will bait, and you will get grabbed. I don't like to play those games. So it was time we left. At this point though, it was still getting late. And now I had quite the herd with me. We even found another Teno. Now, who in their right mind is going to fight 4 Tenos? No one. So I had every intention to leave the group. Until I spotted something juicy. A little trikelet. Trikeling. Baby baked potato. Well, they weren't really babies, they were kind of fat, as trikes tend to be. Now, they were a bit small for me to feel a violent urge, but clearly my packmates, they felt the violent urge, and they said that they wanted to try and fight them. I gave them a little bite on the butt, but I wasn't really feeling like I wanted to go crazy kicking them. I don't know. They were just growing together in peace. They didn't do anything wrong. I wanted to participate a little, but I don't know. I didn't really want to kill them. I just wanted to watch the action. It's not like I could run off on my own while something so interesting was happening. Miss out on all that tasty content. No way. So I hung around, mostly observing, for a good while. The sun was going down, casting long shadows across the beach. And I knew that there were creatures lurking in the water. That was another reason I didn't want to get too involved. I knew what could be out there. The trike's little squeaks of pain only added to my sadness about the whole situation. But was I going to tell everyone to stop? No, look at them. They're frolicking. Something was catching my eye, though. These baby Deinos. I still really wanted to kick them. But that was getting me caught in a little bit of fire. Something that did impress me, however, were these galleys. They were determined to join in, even though they were relatively fragile. And even when Adillo came in and started biting them, they were very resilient. So now I saw myself as somewhat of a guardian to the galley. I mostly just hung about, making sure the Dillo didn't bite it, and trying my luck at kicking some baby Deinos. The trikes were not very respectful of my wishes. Can't imagine why, considering that my group was ferociously attacking them for no reason at all. They were doing well in defending themselves, though, and this Dillo was really starting to annoy me. He kept coming over and friendly calling, as if he wanted to see if the trikes would group with him. Maybe not group, but like, not attack him, and let him attack us? I don't know. I think he wanted the galley to die, maybe. Or he wanted to, like, help them kill the galley. Either way, me messing around eventually got me attacked. And now I was annoyed. Not that I could really blame these guys, it was just self-defense. But, you know, I had to teach them a lesson. Do not mess with me. I think that taught him a lesson. The sun was going down, and at this point, everyone was hurt from the battle. But still, I really wanted to attack a baby Deino. And this is where greed got me. But yet again, the Deino failed its task. I had escaped. The thin line separating my life and death. The end of my story. It had all come down to a stone. Me getting briefly stuck on a stone had saved my life. And if not for that stone, this video might not have ever happened. And so, imagine my luck. I get to sit around and watch the absolute chaos continue as this galley kicks the absolute stuffing out of this trike. The other little trike was dragged to the depths by a Deino. I actually cut down a lot of this fight. This galley is amazing. He kicked this thing for so long. But eventually, he too joined the other trike in a watery grave. And again with this Dillo, what does he think he's doing? He thinks the trike's just going to be friends with him and let him eat, I guess. It was just, that whole situation was ridiculous. I left, got water, food, and some health. And then parted ways with Fish. The other Teno that we had met wanted to nest, and so they carried on the family lineage. Me, on the other hand, I did not have time for nesting. At this point, it was getting even later, and so I went off to seek more action. And I very much found it. I'm honestly not sure where this Deino came from. He wasn't either of the two from the salt water. I could tell when I watched the replays because he had a red stomach. But I'm not one to discriminate, and so he got a kicking regardless. Your best bet when fighting a land Deino is to kick them right after they bite the air, or right when they turn their back, taking advantage of their lack of focus or their cooldown between attacks. So as soon as I see his head turn, I go in. This stego, by the way, had been sitting in that bush this whole time and only escaped when a Deino literally stood on his head. And for me, mistakes were made. Between my idiotic typing and him sticking me on this tree, I copped a few good bites, which left me in a bad way. I was bleeding, had low stamina, and my health was full red. So at this point, I really couldn't help it all. One little mistake and I would be dead. Which sucks because I really would have loved to participate in some land Deino kicking. Unfortunately, I had to sit back as the fight dragged on without me. All the while, this little stego would not shut up. He kept calling. Finally, I decided it was enough. I hoped that some simple bites would make him be quiet. Maybe a tail slam for good measure. Tail slam doesn't do much damage, so it was mostly just a warning. But he just kept going. I had had enough. I silenced him with a kick which sent him flying, before calmly walking back into my bush for a good long rest. He was quiet after that. Despite my best efforts, the Deino made it to water. He was very lucky for this. If I hadn't have got stuck on a random tree, he might not be alive. I sat in my bush for a long time healing, and when I came out, the sun was well and truly in the sky. And again, the bushes had betrayed this Deino. He was trying to make his way towards some food, and I don't think he expected to find me yelling at him. I chased that land lizard back into his puddle. My companion made their way through the bushes to have a closer look. And that's when they made a big mistake. Tail slamming makes you unable to run away. And in that moment, they had gotten snatched up. The corner of this pool is deep enough to drown anything a Deino can grab. But he must have been low on stamina from running away from me previously, and so he was forced to let go. Yet another companion had been reborn from the jaws of a Deino. He wasn't going to get his meal today. I sent him away with some sassy bites of the air. I think he got the message. And now that I finally had a moment to breathe, I noticed how bashed up I looked. I didn't stop to rest though. I wanted to investigate. And I found a little carno at the food that the Deino had been trying to crawl to. So of course I gave him a good chasing. Wasn't much of a chance I was going to catch the thing, but it never hurts to put the fear of herbivores into a young carnivore. They gotta learn at some point. It was time we were moving on from this rock pond. That's when I spotted a little hare sitting up on a rock. I was curious of if I could get on the rock, but I quickly gave up. My teammate, on the other hand, they hobbled away with a broken leg. This was gonna take a while longer. I told them I needed to be on my way. I couldn't stay up all night waiting for a leg to heal. I was ready to go find the battle that would put me in my grave. But when I turned around, I realized I wasn't alone after all. Their leg had healed surprisingly quickly, and they had caught up. Now, to be honest, this wasn't ideal. I knew I was going to struggle to find something that would agree to fight two Tenos. But up until this point, they had stuck by my side, so I didn't want to turn them away. And so, despite my reservations, we continued on our march together. I was drawn by the sound of Deino conversation, and I spotted them. Two juveniles sitting in the shallow water. I knew what I had to do. I charged the larger of the pair and hit him with a kick that left him half health. The smaller one, I think I missed, but that didn't stop me from charging in the water to scare them off. I don't have an aggression problem. What are you talking about? We didn't hang around. There was a larger one in the water, and the smaller one kept circling his head, as if enticing me to come kick him again. Yeah, no, I'm not falling for that game. The few carnos we had spotted on the beach wanted nothing to do with us, and so we decided West Rail was the next place to go. Even though we had been there previously, it had been quite a while throughout the whole night and into the next day of healing, so we hoped we might find something of interest. Plus, we had heard some saras calling, and we hoped they would still be there. Maybe if I was alone, they might have been interested in taking a nibble, but seeing as they weren't full grown, they didn't really want the smoke. I'm sure you could guess what I wanted, though. I just wanted a little nibble. I chased them in circles. I wanted the action, but I wasn't gonna burn my whole stamina bar just to ruin their day as if they didn't want to fight. And so, since they wanted to continue running away, I slowly gave up. Until I realized how big the second one was. She was bite-sized. And so we continued to play the game of run in circles around the trees and try and get some action going. But again, this Sarah really didn't want to mess around, which, fair enough, I probably wouldn't have wanted to either. Whenever she would turn around to try and bite us, I would get a little excited. Maybe we would have our battle. But it was just a show of power to try and get us to walk away. A run and bite fear response. I've been in those shoes before. Though of course they were much smaller than us, so they had a lot more stamina to burn. Even if we wanted to chase them infinitely, that probably wasn't going to happen. And so after chasing her out of a bush, I retired back to the pond for a good long drink. There was life all around us, small, sneaky, and if not for replays, I never would have known what barely grazed by. That could have been a nasty bleed, but luckily I escaped, unscathed. We ran down to the beach to check for signs of life. We were really hoping that those saras were going to be bigger than they were, but since there was nothing else around, we made another migration into Highlands. I don't know what I was hoping to find here. The carnos could have been a good fight, but they were young and one of the Deinos took one of their members, so they weren't interested. There were dillos around, but they also weren't interested. And so I went back to my ways. Deino kicking. I knew there were two in this pond, so we had to be careful. If we got too close to the water, we would be baited out. And so the goal was to scream continuously until they came onto land. We could fight them on land, but if we got grabbed, it would be over. I was ready to accept that fate. After some noise making, the first Deino emerged to confront us. We weren't going to be stupid though. If we pushed forward now and confronted him too close to the water, it was a recipe for drowning. So we kept him moving, pulled him further away from the shore, until the time was right. Every time I ran past, I needed to keep him looking in both directions, and so I had to make the risk of running past the water. All the while he was trying to creep closer, trying to set the perfect ambush. The small aerial strike force consisting of one member was quickly taken down. We didn't need bird interference. And now that the Deino had gotten close to the water, we had to back off a little bit, yell at him, let him know that we knew what was up. Soon he decided it was enough, and started trying to go for the grab. The second one rushed out, but they didn't see what was wandering down towards the shore. When they did, they started a mad dash towards the water. The local trike had come to intervene. I wasn't very happy. Though I appreciate some Deino bashing, that was my job. So I gave him a good kick. Told him, "Get out of here." He wandered away, looking a little sulky. But creatures lurk all around. All our noise was beginning to attract predators. Ones with the ability to run on land instead of slink along the floor. This Dillo was quite speedy, and as soon as the Sarah alarm was sounded, I didn't really want to engage with him anymore. The Saras were the bigger fish that I wanted to fry, and I didn't want to waste my health on a Dillo of all things. So I challenged them. biting the air and giving them a bit of a scream to let them know. They had run a long way to find us. Not that I knew it until I watched the replays. And there were 4, though their 2 younger members weren't really going to get engaged in a fight. Perhaps they were even the parents of the first 2 that I had beaten up. Perhaps karma has a way of finding me every time. But it was late, I was tired, and so I challenged them. I didn't care if I won or lost, though of course, you always want to win, deep down. As soon as they crouched, it's like I could read their mind. I knew that they were ready. The first roar split the quiet air, and the tension erupted into battle. Unfortunately, there wasn't much food in my stomach going into this fight, so quickly I puked. Between my ping, being half asleep, and the fact that my teammate wasn't very close to me when this fight started, it quickly became obvious that this wasn't something I was about to win. But considering it was past 3 AM at this point, I can't say I was upset. I lived a glorious life, and even without me, battles rage on. My teammate ran away, I assumed to live another day, and my beautiful blue body became meals for the carnivores. I hope you enjoyed watching. From birth all the way to death, I had played in one sitting, in order to avoid losing this glorious skin. I put some screenshots at the end, so you can enjoy the blueness. This is honestly one of my favorite skins that I've ever gotten, even though it was temporary. I think it's the temporary things that we have to appreciate. And if you made it this far, maybe subscribe, because you're in the minority of people who would even have watched past like the first 10 minutes. So thank you for that.